And I think there's been a tendency in research and insights for a while to kind of over rely on global averages instead of really making the right pause point from your process standpoint to make sure that those meaningful local differences are really able to kind of bubble up in the learning. And the risk to clients is that those signals can get lost at a local level. You might run into slower adoption or even resistance to the learning in markets if that's not really managed in a smart way. So when that nuance is kind of missed for clients, the cost just isn't that insights are weaker, but it's that bad decision can travel can travel globally.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dig Inspiration episode. So this is where I get the lucky job of chatting with one of my colleagues here at Dig Insights about the client episode that launched last week. So today I'm so thrilled to be joined by Marcie Connan. She is EVP Delivery Excellence and Client Experience here at Dig, that we both kind of laugh about what a mouthful that is. But the reality is you have a very big job, Marcie. And you are an OG. You are, I say this affectionately, you are an OG here at Dig.
Yes, almost 15 years in the making, Jess. So yeah, close to
Yeah.
day one for me.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So I consider it an honor to talk with you. The reason I wanted to chat with you, Mars, is that I was really lucky to talk with Christina Marinucci at Mondelez. And the topic of our conversation was a lot about these global frameworks and how to have local flexibility. And so the reason I thought of you is that obviously at Dig, we are really expanding globally, and it's something that we know that our clients require from us. And so I'd love for you to just talk about, especially from your seat, leading our insights consulting group, why does this global with local nuance conversation matter so much right now?
Yeah, it really does, Jess. And I think what's not changed is like whether local nuance matters. I think, clients assume it does. And we've kind of worked that way for many years. But I think what it boils down to is that many of the global clients that we're working with are just under more pressure than ever to move quickly, to really operationalize their insights in an efficient way. And, as their own businesses are scaling, they're expecting the same from their partners as well. But, while speed and efficiency and consistency is really great, without that local relevance for their teams and their business, there's a lot of risk for their stakeholders at the end of the day. So really, I think the challenge for us is how do you scale without kind of flattening the markets that they're trying to serve at the end of the day. And in practice, that means ensuring that we're not just treating markets as interchangeable. We can't be assuming that, insights or behaviors or even kind of the ways that their stakeholders are making decisions across markets are very uniform and kind of unchanged over time. And I think there's been a tendency in research and insights for a while to kind of over rely on global averages instead of really kind of making the right pause points from your process standpoint to make sure that those meaningful local differences are really able to kind of bubble up in the learning. And the risk to clients is that, just those signals can get lost at a local level. You might run into slower adoption or even resistance to the learning in markets if that's not really managed in a smart way. So, when that nuance is kind of missed for clients, the cost just isn't that the insights are weaker, but it's that bad decision can travel can travel globally. So
Yeah.
that's where that kind of delivery and client experience becomes really critical for engagements like that.
Yeah, that's a great great example. I mean, it just sounds like there's a lot of, I don't know, things that could go wrong, right? When it comes to the local nuances. And so I'd love for you to talk about, how we think about structuring our teams, our workflows so that this, goal of global consistency doesn't crush that local specificity. Like what's something that clients are often surprised that like we get right about local markets?
Yeah, I think one thing that's kind of core to how we approach it at Dig is that kind of consistency isn't just about identical outputs. And, yes, sometimes clients absolutely want like identical outputs, but it kind of lives in how we're thinking and how we're kind of deciding and designing for projects. So very early on, it's about understanding ultimately what decisions does the work really need to support? What does success look like? And importantly, what standards are really non-negotiables and where is there a bit of room to play either with some experimentation or just to kind of create some time and space to kind of create room for the right moments to get that local nuance captured.
Yeah, that's so critical because there's a lot that could get lost in translation. Oh, that's kind of a pun, and
Yeah.
it's situation, isn't it? Okay, I didn't mean to do that. There's just no avoiding the puns at Dig, I'm telling
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to also kind of talk about, our delivery excellence, which is part of your title, right? This is something that we really believe in, and clients not wanting to feel like they're just getting handoffs among their service teams.
So, as we're thinking about how we set our internal team up for success on these kind of global mandates and projects, I think one thing that's often kind of underestimated by teams as they're kind of preparing for engagements like that is yes, the methodology is important and the kind of doing and execution is really critical to strong results at the end of the day. But similar to the way that we're kind of focusing on that kind of decision support up front, I think you can't underestimate some of the softer skills that kind of need to be brought to the team when you're working through that kind of local lens. And I have
Mhm,
a kind of an acronym that I've used with the team to keep in mind to kind of set them up for success on engagements like that. And it's CAST. So a little Marcyism, but
mhm,
it stands for cadence, activation, storytelling, and team dynamics, because these are
mhm,
the elements that I think can either work to really help you or hurt you if it's not done right. And often it's about kind of that stakeholder management side. So, from a cadence standpoint, just recognizing that based on cultural nuances within teams, understanding, how many touch points does the client need? How quickly can you expect, feedback loops to be closed? And recognizing that what feels kind of appropriately kind of fast and speedy in one market may feel rushed in another or kind of
mhm,
disengaging based on how
mhm,
those teams work. Getting that cadence piece right is, I think, a tricky part, but done well, it can kind of just keep good momentum going on a project. And equally important is kind of the activation side. So how do these local teams and operate and what do they need to be able to turn the insights coming out of your project into action?
mhm,
Some markets might rely pretty heavily on really explicit guidance, like, okay, this is what this means and this is what we should be thinking about next. Others are really comfortable kind of doing more translation and kind of acting a little bit more independently. And
mhm,
I think a lot of the signals that we can pick up on in consultation with our clients around just how mature the category might be or
mhm,
how they're resourcing locally can really feed into making that successful. Similarly, storytelling. So, same insights, kind of different emphasis. And this isn't just exclusive to multi-market projects, but some stakeholders are going to respond more to more narrative and storytelling. Others want
mhm,
more precision and proof. So kind of that
mhm,
know your audience element, but kind of being thoughtful about that and giving that consideration very in the upfront in the early stages can
mhm,
be helpful to make sure that expectations are managed and we're able to get clients more quickly from the insight to the actionability of that. And then
mhm,
finally, the team dynamics. Often these types of engagements are led by centralized global teams, but they may have their own challenges in terms of, who actually holds influence in the market and how are they building consensus with their teams. Different teams have different kind of cultural comfort levels with things like challenge or ambiguity. And so kind of getting a real sense of the decision culture with those local markets can go a long way.
Oh my gosh, I feel like each of those letters, so it was cadence, activation, storytelling, team dynamic, right?
Yes.
Each of those could be a whole chapter in the Book of Marcie, and so I love that Marcyism. I think that's dynamite and picks up on so many of the nuances that you talked about, but also that's a lot to manage. I mean, that's a lot of dynamics and components and considerations. I don't know, how do we coach our teams to make sure that we are well set up in order to do that?
Yeah, it's really about kind of recognizing that kind of the project delivery side, that's relatively easy to scale. What's really difficult to scale, though, is the relationship side of things. So I
Yeah.
think really investing heavily there, it means kind of showing up as a thought partner, not just an execution arm to your client's team, right? So knowing when to push clients forward, when to slow them down, knowing when to challenge maybe what they're asking for. It comes through practice, certainly, but I think internally as well, we benefit from a lot of continuity in terms of
Mhm.
the teams that have been structured around the work as well, so that we're not in a situation where it's just very functionally efficient and we're just effectively managing handoffs. I think the best delivery teams are those that can kind of anticipate the questions that clients haven't even asked yet. And that kind of trust and relationship is built over the long term and just through that consistency. So when it goes right, I think those longer tenured relationships are ones where teams really deeply understand the business, not just, the insights ask. And they don't just know like what the clients want, but they know why, right? Being curious, being able to ask the right questions beyond just the immediate brief, that goes a long way. And we spend a lot of time kind of training and developing that within the team. Once that trust is established, it really helps everyone in terms of, just making faster decisions, being able to just have those more honest conversations. And sometimes I even hear from clients that willingness to hear like, hey, maybe this isn't the right move. So there's
Mhm.
a bit of that rapport building and kind of trust that's built. And then of course, I mean, the teams genuinely like find it so rewarding just to kind of grow alongside their clients, right? Not just service them. So
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I can think of so many illustrations of that, and I'm sure we're thinking about, some of the same counts and partnerships, but we really are an extension of those teams. It feels like we are part of that, that company's staff in a lot of ways. And I know that we, love to see those client partners get promoted and grow, and they love to see the same for the dig folks. And it's just such a wonderful kind of community that we've built, is what I observe.
yeah, absolutely. It's a really a special place to be.
So another reason I was so inspired by the conversation with Christina is, I listened to her podcast, She Commerce. It's really a brilliant, brilliant podcast, and they do talk a lot about female leadership and how we can support one another. And Marcy, you and I have been allies, since the day I started at Dig.
Yeah.
I've always felt like you and I are kind of in this together in terms of what female leadership looks like at Dig and how that leadership can help, support systems, navigate complexity. Right? That's like a lot of the things that I think we do. So, how do you see female leadership shaping how teams serve clients? Like, what is the impact that nuance has?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for putting me on to Christina's podcast, Jess.
Yeah, right.
Those kinds of conversations I think are just so important to have. And, I think one thing that really resonated with me in Christina's conversation was just how leadership shows up in different ways through different systems, behaviors. It's not just about the classic labels, male versus female. And that is rang true because I think there isn't one right leadership style. And I think that's a strength, right? Especially in a really complex world. So, there are trends and whatnot. But in my experience, I think female leadership is often very adaptive. I think it's a superpower that I've kind of seen within yourself and other female leaders that I've had the privilege of working with. And what really matters is that kind of adaptability and range, right? Being able to
Mhm.
appreciate, different communication styles, kind of being able to meet people where they are, recognizing, there are different ways to show experience and authority. Is it through presence? Is it through trust? And I find that
Mhm.
the female leaders that I've learned the most from are really able to kind of read the room and adapt. And I think when people just lead authentically at the end of the day, teams respond well, they become resilient, it helps them navigate ambiguity a bit better, and I mean ultimately it helps us all in terms of how we show up for each other and for clients too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think two things that female leaders tend to have a superpower of is giving space to others. And I know that you do this beautifully, Marcy. And I try to. I know that I don't always do it, but like just giving space, whether it's in group settings, meetings, but also just in building plans and strategies, giving voice to others. And then I also think that females maybe don't care about having the right answer more so than getting to the right answer. And I
Mhm.
just think that's so important. And again, it's not that male leaders don't have those qualities or that all females do. It's just more that we do see it, and I'm proud of the female leaders at Dig that do those things and embody those qualities. I think it's part of what contributes to this being a great place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up our conversation, Marcy, and back to the global nuances to local nuances, the reflections on leadership, what does it feel like to a client when this is well set up? That they're serviced in a way that however we want them to feel in our ideal world.
I think that at the end of the day, clients want to feel confident that they can make smart decisions, even if there's some uncertainty kind of surrounding them. They need to feel that they can kind of move at the pace that today's reality is demanding of them, but they don't have to cut corners to get there. And I think, for a long time, when it comes to these ideas of these massive, often very layered engagements, clients have felt that they've had to kind of make trade offs in terms of some of the standards and consistency that they need at that global level, but they want the confidence to know that that local nuance won't get lost. And as part of that, they should feel that the partners that they're working with have the same goal and vision as them at the end of the day, that they're curious and open to learning how they can make collaboration better along that process. And their local teams should feel empowered coming out of the work, not just overridden or that or that they were just kind of a transactional part of the bigger piece there. So at the end of the day, I think that we want the work that we're doing to feel human, even if it's being done at a large scale, both clients and the agency side as well.
Couldn't agree more. What
Yeah.
she said. No, I love it. Thank you so much for taking time, Marcie, to talk with me. I think you're just one of the biggest reasons that DAG is successful and that our employees feel motivated and inspired to do great things for our clients. So I just appreciate that you took a few minutes to chat with me today.
Of course. Thanks, Jess.
Like what you heard? Share the inspiration or head to diginsights.com to learn more about what we do.